David Ross gets the vote of confidence. We're going to talk about our opinions on David Ross, Cubs manager, moving forward, or is he moving forward? Right? We're going to get into all that. Pete Alonso available, and maybe the Cubs are a player on him. Hey, guys, before we do anything else, two things I want to ask you. First off, I want you to be part of this channel. I'm recruiting you right now, man. Like, subscribe, give us a thumbs up, and hit the bell so that you know when we're live and you can be a part of it. You're a hot prospect, and we're trying to bring you on this roster right here so we can talk Cubs baseball on the Cubs baseball. And we're brought to you by the Smokies Goatees Locker Room. They won the Southern League Championship, and I know Cubs fans love Cubs gear, so that's our first sponsor. Thank you to the Smokies for joining our team. All right, he's Chad Anderson. I'm Mick Gillispie. Let's get into this, Chad. Let's talk about what's going on right now because there's two big topics, and I'm going to give you my take on David Ross, and then I want to hear what you think. And so, first off, David Ross was on Dancing with the Stars, and he was on ESPN calling baseball games. The guy never worked in the minor leagues a day in his life. Now, he played in the minor leagues, and he was a great catcher, backup catcher, not a starter, but mostly a backup. He had the great tandem with John Lester. I get that he knows the game. I have nothing but respect for him. But when I look at the guys who are out there that I would have wanted, it would be guys like Brandon Hyde, who worked for the Cubs. He was a minor league manager with the Marlins. He was a minor league guy, worked himself up to the big leagues, had jobs, and learned the business of managing people and managing the game of baseball. Brian Snitker with the Braves, same thing. The guy was like a minor league lifer. He put his time in. He learned the game. He learned how to manage baseball. And I get it. Not through the course of history, there's been guys like Pete Rose who were like players and managers at the same time, player manager. And that's something that we saw too. Rogers Hornsby was like that. And that's how the game used to be. But to me, the inexperience that I saw down the stretch with a team that I do feel like, if you asked me at the beginning of the season, they overachieved. I get that, but they also should have made the playoffs, and they had it right there in front of them. And you could tell by the way that the younger players are being managed, the way that the veterans were in the lineup way too much without a day off, some of the moves that kept you scratching your head, the bullpen that got blown out. You just I would think would want someone who just had a little bit more seasoning instead of getting a guy who's, like we talked about before, Chad, you bring this up all the time off the air, getting farted in his face on Dancing with the Stars. And I'm just kidding. Look, Rossi's a cool guy. He really is. The guys played hard for him, but he just didn't get it done.
No, he didn't. Another guy, and I was looking this up because it came to mind as you were just going on this little rant here. So
that's how I wanted to start.
Yeah, right. So another guy is looking at, that kind of reminds me of Rossi in his progression. So you mentioned Snitker, great point. Some Cubs fans, as much as it may pain them, they're looking north. They're looking north going, what about Craig Counsell?
Yes.
The guy continues to win the Central Division year after year after year. But one guy that to me, Ross kind of fits in with is, remember Brad Ausmus?
Yeah.
Like everybody talked about how this guy was going to go from catcher, and they do the same with Yadier Molina, even though he just retired. But people look at it and go, man, that guy's going to be the next great manager. And he was given opportunities, and it never really panned out. They weren't necessarily terrible teams or anything, but they just never did anything that you would look around and go, kind of anybody could do this with this roster. So, I'm with you. It's one of those things where maybe this year Ross exceeded expectations, but kind of like, I don't know the best phrase to even put this in, but when you step back and look at it, you go, man, you're kind of a victim of your own success this year is maybe the best way to put it, because they did overachieve from what we were expecting, you and I, going into the year. But once you got to that position and you're like, oh, damn, wait a minute, this team may go to the playoffs. And then it just all collapsed and crumbled. What did they lose? What was it? 15 of their last 22 games.
Yeah, it was crazy, right? They would had 90%, on Fangraphs to make the playoffs, over 90%.
92.
Yeah, they didn't even make it, right? And no, I agree. See, here's the thing that I put everything on. First, Craig Counsell would be a great manager. Somebody's going to pay him a lot of money. Milwaukee's not going to do it. And there's a lot of teams that are circling like sharks to get him. And what it reminded me of is, talking with Tom Ricketts about Alabama football. Because, I went to Alabama. You went to Alabama. Being around Alabama, what I saw was they went from being mediocre to great when they got Nick Saban. The Cubs went from lovable losers to champions when they went out and got the best guys available. They went and got Theo Epstein, and whether you like it or not, at the time, Joe Madden was one of the top managers in baseball. They weren't breaking a guy in off of Dancing with the Stars and ESPN. I mean, look, I'm sorry. That's what this is. Bruce Bochy's a great manager. Dusty Baker won the World Series. The guy's he's been on like every single team. Like he's got a ton of experience, right?
Here's another name. What about Aaron Boone? Same thing. He didn't come up through the minors, right? Like he went to ESPN, and then he goes right into New York City, takes over the greatest baseball franchise in the history of baseball. And what have the Yankees done since he's been there?
Right.
Made the playoffs, very, very good rosters, but they haven't dominated like you would expect.
Mm-hmm. There's some good things with him for sure. I get it. The team plays hard. He is an awesome guy. And all of that stuff. But when you look at and I got this from the channel, people were like, hey, what do you think about this? Or what do you think about that? And when you look at it as an objective observer, you can't say that the guy did a great job managing. Did he do a good job? He did a fair job. Like, look, I get it. You got more wins than last year, but the way that the team finished matters because your expectations need to be going into every single season that you're going to win a World Series. Look at the Yankees. How many games are the Cubs ahead of the Yankees right now in the final standings? Not many, but some, right? And the Yankees are bitching and complaining. It's the worst season they've ever had. And the Cubs, hey, we're happy. We got close, but we didn't get there. And that's not what you want. You want the expectation to be, we're going out here to win a championship every year. But when you're not bringing in the best to do that, then it's going to be tough to do that.
Here's one last thing, too, with Ross, is that while it may look good that he exceeded some expectations or had the team, and you mentioned this, how he had the team in position, and while he does deserve credit for that, you also have to look and go, wow, this team, they played well when nobody believed in this team. But once the pressure started to cook in those final few weeks of the season, that's when things started to fall apart. So for me, it starts to question a little bit like, okay, can this guy as a manager, can this guy rally the team and help control emotions and control mindset when you get into those late pieces of the season? Because that didn't happen this year. So maybe is a good manager when you're an underdog, but maybe not as good if the weight of the expectation is on top of you.
Yep, good point. All right, second thing we're going to get into today, Pete Alonso to the Cubs. I heard Bruce Levine say this. I've talked to Bruce many times. He does a show on 670 The Score every Saturday in the clubhouse. He's one of the baseball experts in Chicago that I love talking ball with, and we're going to get him on this channel if he wants to do it. But he was suggesting that maybe the Cubs were one of the teams who were interested in bringing the polar bear to Wrigley Field. I love that. Look, I bet on the guy every year in the home run derby, right? Because he shows up like the softball guy, on the rec league softball that's got the full uniform. Like everybody else is there, having a little bit of a good time and enjoying themselves. And he comes in to win that baby every year. He's a true power hitter. You know what? I mean, look, put him over at first base and get out of the way. I mean, I think it would be great. And if you add him and Belly, or who knows what they're going to do in the offseason, I definitely feel like it's a move in the right direction. But I'd love to have that slugger in there.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about a guy who hit 40 home runs each of the last two seasons, had 50-plus home runs 4 years ago, RBIs over 100 in 3 of his 5 seasons. Of course, one of those was short because of COVID. So you're talking about a piece that you build around in the middle of that lineup. The big key is going to be, what does that mean for other moves? And what does that mean for Cody Bellinger? And then what does that mean for, first base? And you and I talked about some positions the other night. First base is one of those that the Cubs could make a move because you have Matt Mervis, right? and he was given a small sample of the big leagues this year, and it didn't go as well as everybody wanted to. But does that mean you give up? No. But is the upside at other positions greater than maybe the upside at first base if you plug in an Alonso? I think so. And later this afternoon, one of the reports that was coming out is Jesse Rogers. Jesse.
Yeah, had him on here.
Yeah, so Jesse goes on the radio, and he says that not only are the Cubs interested in Pete Alonso wants to be a part of the Cubs.
Oh.
And he's got 1 year left on his contract. So the Cubs are going to have to give up quite a bit to get Alonso. The Mets probably are going to want PCA back.
I believe that.
Yeah, but my big thing here is if you're going to get Alonso, I just don't want it to be a rental, because the Cubs are not, in my opinion, yet a World Series team for 2024, the way it stands today. Right. So if you're going to trade, that's fine, but make sure he's part of the future and do what you can to work things out so that an extension is in place, or you've at least talked about, hey guys, we want you here for a while, so don't come and then bail on us in your free agent year.
Yeah, great points, Chad. And for you guys, keep the comments coming in the comment section. Both of us are in there constantly listening to what you guys have to say. And whether we agree or we disagree, we really appreciate it. So much fun. I learn a lot about baseball. I've only spent, 40 years around the game, which is crazy to say that. But, man, I still learn something every day on this channel. And we're going to have fun. We're going to cut up and we're going to not take ourselves too seriously. But we're also going to try to get to those comments and hear what you guys have to say. So as I was saying before, make sure that you like and subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. We'll be back tomorrow morning with a show. We'll be popping on if anything breaks. Hey, if that trade happens and the Polar Bears coming to the north side, hey, you're going to hear about it right here on the Cubs Baseball channel.